Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. On the undercard of Joshua versus Ngannou is an excellent heavyweight matchup between Zhilei Zhang and Joseph Parker. Now, you probably know all about these fighters. Just a quick, I'll go through a few points. Zhilei Zhang, as you know, last year had a tremendous double victory over Joe Joyce. Stopped him in 6 rounds on an eye injury. Joyce at the time was undefeated in 15. And then in the rematch, which was in September, Zhang knocked Joyce flat. Was it his third round, wasn't it? Not fourth. Yeah, third round. Just knocked him flat. And Joyce previously had sort of traded on the idea of his concrete jaw and his durability. And the way Zhang finished him was just fantastic. I mean, what did he do? Feint to the body and then threw it's southpaw, isn't he, Zhang? So he threw the right hook, landed slap bang on Joyce's jaw, and he fell face first. And terrific victory away from home. Both the Joyce fights were away from home for Zhang. He's a road warrior. And Zhang announced himself at the age of, I think he was 39, he's 40 now. And prior to those two fights, he lost a unanimous decision over 12 to Filip Hrgović, who's still undefeated. Was there a knockdown in the first round that Zhang scored that wasn't called? Yeah. A lot of people think there were, but a lot of people feel, regardless of that Zhang beat Hrgović. I've always felt Hrgović is slightly overrated, although he has ability. But with the benefit of hindsight, I mean, that victory for Hrgović, even if you think it was very close, has aged very well in light of what Zhang's done. Zhang, the only sort of alarm bell that goes off with Zhang is when he had a majority draw against Jerry Forrest, but he was ill during that fight. Apparently, he had kidney problems, and he, really strikingly ran out of gas and was hanging on for dear life at the end. And this was even though Zhang had Forrest over in, I think he had the first 3 rounds, wasn't it? If he knocked him over in the first, the second, and the third, and he thought, well, this is going to be a wide points decision. And then coming back, Forrest was able to sort of regroup and start really banging Zhang around, banging the big bang around, and pinched a majority draw. Well, that's kind of an anomaly, an aberration, because I don't think Zhang. When Zhang said I was ill, I'm inclined to agree, but there's still a question over 12 rounds over Zhang's stamina, especially as he is now 40, especially as he carries a lot of weight. He's not Mr. Body Beautiful. And I'm not knocking Zhang at all. I think he's a very, very good fighter. He's got the size, he's 6'6", so he carries that weight a lot. But at 40, having done he did the 12 against Hrgović, but apart from that, I mean, you have to go back to, I think, 2019, where he fought Andrei Rudenko and went 10 rounds. I'm curious to know what he's going to be like in those rounds from, say, rounds 8 onwards. Let's say the last third of the fight. I'm very, very curious to see how he's going to react to that, what his engine is really like. Now, if you look at Joseph Parker, who comes in with 34 wins and 3 defeats, 23 KOs, only one of his defeats is by stoppage, and that was to Joe Joyce, who he's knocked out by a hellacious left hook. And he'd been beaten up early in that fight, but had really hung tough, and he was losing the fight, but he was making it competitive until he got knocked out. And that was the fight that really made it was like Joyce's coming out party. And I think that's the fight that made Joyce the favourite against Zhang the first time round. Now, that was his 3rd defeat, Parker, when he got knocked flat by Joyce. That was at the back end of 2022 in September. In 2023, he came back fantastically well. I mean, it was pretty much the comeback of the year because he had 4 fights and won the lot. And even though the opponents, not all of them were great, I mean, Jack Massey is really just a cruiserweight, I think, really, or very small heavyweight. Dare I say bridgerweight. He came in with a 20-1 record, got outpointed over 10 by Parker. Nice little comeback fight. Then he went back, Parker did, to New Zealand, or was it Australia? I think it might have been in Australia, this fight, because he had a 1-round blowout against a guy called Apilu, I don't know anything about the guy. That was a one-round blowout. Then he fought Simon Keane in October of 2023, knocked him out in 3 rounds. Keane was 23 wins and 1 defeat. Not a great fighter, not really world-class, but decent win, a rebuilding win for for Parker. And then, of course, in December, the Keane fight, by the way, was in Riyadh, and then Parker went back in December to Riyadh, and as we know, he defeated Deontay Wilder, unanimous decision, very wide. God knows what was on Wilder's mind. It certainly wasn't boxing. He boxed very, very poorly. The spark seemed to have gone out. I don't know whether he's been smoking whatever, but maybe he's been hanging out with Ryan Garcia. But yeah, that was 4 fights for Parker in that. And again, not great opposition, but when you're coming back, you build, incrementally, you move up the ladder. And he did that. And it was, Joshua came back well last year with 3 wins against, pretty good opposition in general. And so did Parker. And of course, Joe Joyce, having lost twice, having knocked out Parker and then lost twice to Zhang, is now facing Cash Alley in, I don't know where it is. Where's that going to be? It's a smaller venue, I know that. So things can change. Things can change. And as we've said on this channel innumerable times, defeats need not define you. Defeats are just steps. And sometimes you take a step back, but if you learn from it, you can move forward again. So Parker seems to have done this. Now, Parker, since he's hooked up with Andy Lee, that relationship has paid dividends because they had the 2 wins over Derek Chisora. Okay, he got knocked out by Joyce, but again, in terms of fights with Andy Lee, Parker has 6 wins and only the 1 defeat. And there seems to be more. He's put on weight, so he looks bigger. He is bigger because he always looked like quite relatively small heavyweight. Now he looks like he's got a bit of meat on him. Not so well defined, but maybe that's deliberate. I think it probably is with Andy Lee. He's more of a technique guy rather than a conditioning guy. And their relationship seems to be paying dividends. The question is, what can they do with Zhang? Well, I think, even though Parker is certainly against Wilder, he was far more aggressive, far more front-footed than people expected. People thought he might move away from Wilder's right hand, which he did in the first 2 or 3 rounds. He was cautious of the right hand, but it wasn't like he was just doing nothing. It wasn't like he was running around the ring. There was an element of, okay, I've got to be careful of the power, but at the same time, I've got something for you. And then as the rounds went on, he picked up the pace and I think tried to stop Wilder at the end of the fight. Bearing in mind that was a 12 round, you could argue, well, maybe he should have done. He certainly beat up Wilder in the last few rounds. Wilder just couldn't do anything with him. But of course, Wilder's not Zhang. Wilder's probably, 30 or 40 pounds in natural weight lighter than Zhang. Zhang is a big man, hits very, very hard. And I think the tactics will have to be, again, a bit of caution in the early round from Parker. The thing about Zhang is, he's got 21 knockouts in 26 wins, but he can also box very well. He's got a lovely jab. He feints well. The way he set up Joyce for the knockout, I think did he feint to the body with the southpaw backhand, and then he threw the hook over, I seem to remember, and knocked him out. He's a thinking fighter. He's an intelligent fighter. And I think Parker's got his work cut out in this fight. Now, I'm not saying he can't win, because if he can get through those first 6 rounds and drag Zhang, make Zhang fight at a high pace, and also make Zhang think a lot and kind of drain some mental energy out of him. And then in the second half of the fight, if Parker can come on strong, like he did with Wilder, be a little bit more industrious, a little bit more come forward, start upping his work rate, then maybe he can really ask the question of Zhang's gas tank, engine, whatever you want to call it, stamina. We'll go with stamina. Who's going to win? I think Zhang will be the one on the front foot early on. He'll be box fighting. He'll be using his jab a lot. Parker, in my opinion, should jab with the jabber. You jab with the jabber, never hook with a hooker, is the old adage. Parker will probably be on the back foot for much of the first half of the fight. But if he wants to win this fight, he has got to get stuck in at some point. And I think from the 7th round, 8th round onwards, he'll start to really come at Zhang and test him. Even if he risks getting knocked out, Zhang, I think we'll see him flagging a bit in the last third of the fight. It's feasible Zhang could catch Parker and knock him out like Joyce did, but it would have to be a clean shot because Parker's chin is pretty good. Even though he got knocked out by Joyce, that was a very, very, accurate, hard punch that he actually feinted quite well, and Parker didn't see it coming. The ones that hurt you the most, sting you the most, the ones you don't see coming. Zhang's perfectly capable of setting something like that up. I can certainly see occasions where Zhang clips Parker. I just worry about Zhang's gas tank. Because if I had more confidence in Zhang's stamina, I would be saying he wins this at least on points, maybe even a late stoppage. But I've got a hunch that his stamina is really suspect. So who am I going to pick? Shall I stick my neck out and go for a Joe Joyce win on points? Not Joe Joyce, Joseph Parker win on points. On the other hand, Zhang hung tough against Hrgovic when he was unwell. Well, not unwell, no, against Forrest when he was unwell, and he went the distance with Hrgovic. Okay, I think what I'm going to pick is, I don't say this with any great confidence, I'm going to go for Zhang on points. I think Parker can avoid getting knocked out, but I think Zhang will probably... I think it's going to go the distance. And I give Zhang a sort of 60-40 advantage. I can see Parker outpointing Zhang, don't get me wrong. But I'm going to shelve my suspicions about Zhang's gas tank and say I think Zhang will hang tough. He'll have to come through a few rocky moments later on. But I can see him winning a decision, maybe a split or a majority. Difficult fight to predict this. I think this is... What do you think? What do you think? Who are you picking and why are you picking them? Because this is a difficult one to predict. I'm going to go with Zhang on points, but probably wake up tomorrow and I'll think, Parker on points. But let me know your opinion. Give me your opinion. Let me know what you think. And as always, of course, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. It helps us a great deal. Looking forward to reading your comments. This is a really intriguing fight. Style matchup's really fascinating. But let me know what you think. All right. Thanks a lot for your time. I'm looking forward to reading your comments, and I'll catch you later. Bye for now.